Krishna. We'd like to welcome everyone to our Sunday Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada. Every Sunday for almost 3.5 years now we've been reading Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. So now we're on our 4th time around Krishna book. You can turn to chapter 3. Before we begin, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Vishnu-padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachari Chatarane. And to each other, Vancha Kalpadurubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we'll begin chapter 3, the birth of Lord Krishna. We may as well just start again since it's only one page, huh? The birth of Lord Krishna. In the Bhagavad-Gita, the Lord says that his appearance, birth, and activities are all transcendental, and that one who understands them factually becomes immediately eligible to be transferred to the spiritual world. The Lord's appearance or birth is not like that of an ordinary man who is forced to accept a material body according to his deeds. The Lord's appearance is explained in the 2nd chapter. He appears out of his own sweet pleasure. When the time was mature for the appearance of the Lord, the constellations became very auspicious. The astrological influence of the star known as Rohini was predominant. This star is considered to be very auspicious and is under the direct supervision of Brahma. According to the astrological conclusion, besides the proper situation of the stars, there are auspicious and inauspicious moments due to the different situations of the different planetary systems. At the time of Krishna's birth, the planetary systems were automatically adjusted so that everything became auspicious.
At that time, in all directions, east, west, south, north, everywhere, there was an atmosphere of peace and prosperity. There were auspicious stars visible in the sky and on the surface of the earth. In all towns and villages and pasturing grounds and within the minds of everyone, there were signs of good fortune. The rivers were flowing full of waters and lakes were beautifully decorated with lotus flowers. The forests were full with beautiful birds and peacocks. All the birds within the forest began to sing with sweet voices, and the peacocks began to dance along with their consorts. The wind blew very pleasantly, carrying the aroma of different flowers, and the sensation of bodily touch was very pleasing. At home, the Brahmins, who were accustomed to offering sacrifices in the fire, found their homes very pleasant for offerings. Due to disturbances created by demoniac kings, the sacrificial fire had been almost stopped in the houses of Brahmins. But now they could find the opportunity to start the fire peacefully. Being forbidden to offer sacrifices, the Brahmins had been very much distressed in mind, intelligence, and activities. But just on the point of Krishna's appearance, automatically their minds became full of joy because they could hear transcendental vibrations in the sky proclaiming the appearance of Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The denizens of the Gandharva and Kinnara planets began to sing, and the denizens of the Siddhaloka and the planets of the Charanas began to offer prayers in the service of the personality of Godhead. In the heavenly planets, the angels and their wives, along with the Vidyadharas and their wives, began to dance. The great sages and the demigods, being pleased, began to shower flowers. At the seashore, there was the sound of mild waves, and above the sea, there were clouds in the sky, which began to thunder very pleasingly. When things were adjusted like this, Lord Vishnu, who is residing within the heart of every living entity, appeared in the darkness of night as the Supreme Personality of Godhead before Devaki, who appeared as one of the demigodesses. The appearance of Lord Vishnu at that time could be compared to the rising of the full moon over the eastern horizon. The objection may be raised that since Lord Krishna appeared on the 8th day of the waning moon, there could be no rising of the full moon. In answer to this, it may be said that Lord Krishna appeared in the dynasty which is in the hierarchy of the moon. Therefore, although the moon was incomplete at that night because of the Lord's appearance in the dynasty wherein the moon is himself the original person, the moon was in an overjoyous condition. So, by the grace of the Krishna, he could appear just like a full moon.
In an astronomical treatise by the name of Kamanikya, the constellations at the time of the appearance of Lord Krishna are very nicely described. It is confirmed that the child born at that auspicious moment was the Supreme Brahman or the Absolute Truth. Vasudeva saw that wonderful child born as a baby within 4 hands, holding conch shell, club, disc and lotus flower decorated with the mark of Sri Vatsa, wearing the jewel necklace of Kaustuba stone, dressed in yellow silk, appearing dazzling like a bright blackish cloud, wearing a helmet bedecked with a Vaidurya stone, valuable bracelets, earrings and similar other ornaments all over his body, and beautified by an abundance of hair on his head. Due to the extraordinary features of the child, Vasudeva was struck with wonder. How could a newly born child be so decorated? Vasudeva could therefore understand that Lord Krishna had now appeared, and he became overpowered by the occasion. Vasudeva very humbly wondered that although he was an ordinary living entity conditioned by material nature and was externally imprisoned by Kamsa, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, Vishnu or Krishna, had appeared as a child in his home, exactly in his original position. No earthly child is born with 4 hands, decorated with ornaments and nice clothing, fully equipped with all the signs of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Over and over again, Vasudeva glanced at his child and he considered how to celebrate his auspicious moment. Generally, when a male child is born, he thought, people observe the occasion with jubilant celebrations. And in my home, although I am imprisoned, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has taken birth. How many millions and millions of times should I be prepared to observe this auspicious ceremony?
When Vasudeva, who is also called Anantakudabi, was looking at his newborn baby, he was so happy that he wanted to give many thousands of cows in charity to the Brahmanas. According to the Vedic system, when there is an auspicious ceremony in the Kshatriya king palace, out of joy the king gives many things in charity. Cows decorated with golden ornaments and delivered to the Brahmanas and the sages. Vasudeva wanted to perform charitable ceremony to celebrate Krishna's appearance, but just he was slacked within the walls of Kamsa presence. This was not possible. Instead, within his mind, he gave thousands of cows to the Brahmanas. When Vasudeva was convinced that the newborn child was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, he bowed down with the folded hands and began to offer hymn prayers. At that time, Vasudeva was in the transcendental position and he became completely free from all fear of Kamsa. The newborn baby was also flashing his effulgence within the room in which he appeared. Vasudeva then began to offer his prayer. My dear Lord, I can understand who you are. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the super soul of all living entity, and the absolute truth. You have appeared in your own internal form, which is directly preserved by us. I understand that because I am afraid of Kamsa, you have appeared just to deliver me from that fear. You do not belong to this material world. You are the same person who brings about the cosmos manifestation simply by glazing over the material nature.
One may argue that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who creates the whole cosmic manifestation simply by his glance, cannot come within the womb of Devaki, the wife of Vasudeva. To eradicate this argument, Vasudeva said, My dear Lord, it is not a very wonderful thing that you have appeared within the womb of Devaki, because the creation was also made in that way. You were lying in the causal ocean as Mahavishnu, and by your breathing process, innumerable universes came into existence. Then you entered into each of the universes as Garbhodaka Shayi Vishnu. Then again you expanded yourself as Shirodaka Shayi Vishnu, and entered into the hearts of all living entities, and even into the atoms. Therefore, your entrance into the womb of Devaki is understandable in the same way. You appear to have entered, but you are simultaneously all-pervading. We can understand your entrance and non-entrance from material examples. The total material energy remains intact even after being divided into 16 elements. The material body is nothing but the combination of the 5 gross elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Whenever there is a material body, it appears that such elements are newly created, but actually the elements are always existing outside of the body. Similarly, although you have appeared as a child in the womb of Devaki, you are also existing outside. You are always in your abode, but still you can simultaneously expand yourself into millions of forms.
One has to understand your appearance with great intelligence because the material energy is also emanating from you. You are the original source of the material energy, just as the sun is the source of the sunshine. The sunshine cannot cover the sun globe, nor can the material energy, being an emanation from you, cover you. You appear to be in the 3 modes of material nature or material energy, but actually the 3 modes of material energy cannot cover you. This is understood by the highly intellectual philosophers. In other words, although you appear to be within the material energy, you are never covered by it.
We hear from the Vedic version that the Supreme Brahman exhibits his effulgence and therefore everything becomes illuminated. We can understand from Brahm Samhita that the Brahm Jyoti or the Brahman effulgence emanates from the body of Supreme Lord. And from the Brahman effulgence, all creation takes place. It is also stated in Bhagavad-Gita that the Lord is the support of Brahman effulgence. Therefore, originally, he is the root cause of everything. But persons who are less intelligent think that when the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes within this material world, he accepts the material qualities. Such conclusions are not very mature but are made by less intelligent. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is directly and indirectly existing everywhere. He is outside this material creation and he is also within it. He is within this material creation not only as Garbhodakshai Vishnu, he is also within the atom. The existence of the atom is due to his presence. Nothing can be separated from his existence. In the Vedic injunctions, we find that the supreme soul or the root cause of everything has to be searched out because nothing exists independently of the supreme soul. Therefore, this material manifestation is also a transformation of his potency. Both inert matter and the living force, the soul, are emanations from him. Only the foolish conclude that when the Supreme Lord appears, he accepts the condition of matter. Even if he appears to have accepted a material body, he is still not subjected to any material condition. Krishna has therefore appeared and defeated all imperfect conclusions about the appearance and the disappearance of Supreme Personality of Godhead.
My Lord, your appearance, existence, and disappearance are beyond the influence of the material qualities. Because your Lordship is the Supreme Brahman and the controller of everything, there is nothing inconceivable or the contradictory in you. As you have said, material nature works under your superintendence, just like a governmental officer working under the order of the chief executive. The influence of the subordinate activities cannot affect you. Since you are the Supreme Brahman, everything is existing within you, and since all the activities of material nature are controlled by your Lordship, none of these activities affect you. You are called the Suklam or the witness, is the symbolic representations of the absolute truth because it is unaffected by the material qualities. Lord Brahma is called Rakta or red because Brahma represents the quality of passion for creation. Darkness is entrusted to Lord Shiva because he annihilates the cosmos. The creation, annihilation, and the maintenance of these cosmic manifestations are conducted by your potencies, yet you are always unaffected by those qualities. As confirmed in the Vedas, Harihi Nirguna Shakta Sakshat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always free from all material qualities. It is also said that the qualities of passion and ignorance are non existent in the persons of the Supreme Lord.
My Lord, you are the Supreme Controller, the Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Great, maintaining the order of this cosmic manifestation. Yet, in spite of your being the Supreme Controller, you have so kindly appeared in my home. The purpose of your appearance is to kill the followers of the demoniac rulers of the world, who are in the dress of royal princes but are actually demons. I am sure that you will kill all of them and their followers and soldiers. I understand that you have appeared in order to kill the uncivilized Kamsa and his followers, but knowing that you were to appear in order to kill him and his followers, he has already killed so many of your predecessors. Your elderly brothers, now he is simply awaiting the news of your birth. As soon as he hears about it, he will immediately appear with all kinds of weapons to kill you.
After this prayer of Vasudeva, Devaki, the mother of Krishna, offered her prayers. She was very frightened because of her brother's aristocracy. Devaki said, My dear Lord, your internal form like Narayana, Lord Rama, Haistriya, Varaha, Narsingha, Vamana, Baldeva and millions of similar incarnations emanate from Vishnu are described in the Vedic literature as original. You are original because all your forms and as incarnation are outside of this material creation. Your form has existing before this cosmos manifestation was created. Your form are internal and all-pervading. They are also self-effulgent, changeless, and uncontaminated by the material qualities. Such internal form are very conscious and full of bliss. They are situated in the transcendental goodness and are always engaged in different pastime. You are not limited to particular form only. All such transcendental internal form are self-sufficient. I can understand that you are the Supreme Lord Vishnu.
After many millions of years, when Lord Brahma comes to the end of his life, the annihilation of the cosmic manifestation takes place. At that time, the five elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether, enter into the Mahat-tattva. The Mahat-tattva then enters by the force of time into the non-manifested total material energy. The total material energy enters into the energetic pradhana, and the pradhana enters into you. Therefore, after the annihilation of the whole cosmic manifestation, you alone remain with your transcendental name, form, qualities, and paraphernalia. My Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, because you are the director of the unmanifested total energy and the ultimate reservoir of the material nature. My Lord, the whole cosmic manifestation is under the influence of time. Beginning from the moment up to the duration of the year, all act under your direction. You are the original director of everything and the reservoir of all potent energies.
All the conditioned souls are continuously fleeing from one body to another and one planet to another. Yet, they do not get free from onslaught of birth and death. But when one of these fearful living entities comes under the shelter of your lotus feet, you can lie down without anxiety of being attacked by formidable death. This statement by Devaki is confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita by the Lord himself. There, the Lord says that even after traveling all over the universe, from Brahmaloka to Patalaloka, one cannot escape the attack of birth, death, disease, and old age. But one who enters the kingdom of God, the Lord says, is never again obliged to come to the material world. Therefore, my Lord, I request you to save me from the cruel hands of Kamsa, the son of Ugrasena.
Put it closer to your mouth.
I am praying to your lordships to please rescue me from this fearful condition, because you are always ready to give protection to your servitors. The Lord has confirmed this statement in the Bhagavad-Gita by assuring Arjuna, you may declare to the world, my devotee shall never be vanquished.
While thus praying to the Lord for rescue, Mother Devaki nonetheless expressed her motherly affection. I understand that this transcendental form is generally perceived in meditation by the great sages, but I am still afraid, because as soon as Kamsa understands that you have appeared, he might harm you. So I request that for the time being, you become invisible to our material eyes. In other words, she requested the Lord to assume the form of an ordinary child. My only cause of fear from my brother Kamsa is due to your appearance. My Lord Madhusudana, I wish that Kamsa may not learn that you are already born. Therefore, I request you to conceal this four-armed form of your lordship, which holds the four symbols of Vishnu, namely the conch shell, the disc, the club, and the lotus flower. My dear Lord, at the end of the annihilation of the cosmic manifestation, you put the whole universe within your abdomen. Still, by your unalloyed mercy, you have appeared in my womb. I am surprised that you imitate the activities of ordinary human beings just to please your devotee.
On hearing the prayers of Devaki, the Lord replied, My dear mother, in the millennium of Shambhuva Manu, my father Vasudeva was living as one of the Prajapatis. His name at that time was Stupa, and you were his wife named Prashni. At that time, when Lord Brahma was desiring to increase the population, he requested you to generate offspring. You controlled your senses and performed severe austerities. By practicing the breathing exercises of yoga system, both you and your husband could tolerate all the influences of material laws and the rainy season, the onslaught of the wind, and the scorching heat of the sunshine. You also executed all religious principles. In this way, you are able to cleanse your heart and control the influences of material laws. In executing your austerity, you used to eat only the leaves of the trees which fell to the ground. Then, with a steady mind and controlled sex drive, you worshipped me, desiring some wonderful benediction from me. Both of you practiced severe austerities for 12,000 years by the calculation of the demigods. During that time, your mind was always absorbed in me. When you were executing devotional service and always thinking of me within your heart, I was very much pleased with you. O sinless mother, your heart is therefore always pure. At that time I appeared before you in this form just to fulfill your desire and ask you to ask whatever you desire. At that time, you wished to have me born as your son. Although you saw me personally, instead of asking for your complete liberation from material bondage, under the influence of my energy, you asked to become your son. In other words, to appear in material world, the Lord selected his mother and father, namely Prishni and Stupa respectively. Whenever the Lord comes as human being, he must have a mother and a father. So he selected Prishni and Stupa to be his mother and father perpetually. And on account of this, neither Prishni nor Stupa could ask the Lord for liberation. Liberation is not so important as the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The Lord could have awarded Prishni and Stupa immediate liberation, but he preferred to keep them within his material world for his different appearances, as will be explained in the following verses. On receiving the benediction from the Lord to become his father and mother, Stupa and Prashni retired from the activities of austerity and lived as husband and wife in order to beget a child who was Supreme Lord himself.
In due course of time, Prishni became pregnant and gave birth to the child. The Lord spoke to Devaki and Vasudeva. At that time, my name was Vishnugarbha. In the next millennium, you took birth as Aditi and Kashyapa, and I became your child of the name Upendra. At that time, my form was just like a dwarf, and for this reason, I was known as a Vamandeva. I gave you the benediction that I would take birth as your son 3 times. The first time I was known as a Prishnigarbha, born of Prishni and Sutapa. In the next birth I was Upendra, born of Aditi and Kashyapa, and now for the 3rd time I am born as a Krishna from you, Devaki and Vasudeva. I have appeared in this Vishnu form just to convince you that I am the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, again taken birth. I could have appeared just like an ordinary child, but in that way you would not have believed that the Supreme Personality of Godhead had taken birth in a womb. My dear father and mother, you have therefore raised me many times as your child with great affection and love, and I am therefore very much pleased and obliged to you, and assure you that this time you shall go back home, back to Godhead, on account of your perfection in your mission. I know you are very concerned about me and afraid of Kamsa. Therefore, I order you to take me immediately to Gokula and exchange me for the daughter who has just been born to Yashoda.
Having spoken thus to his father and mother, the Lord turned himself into an ordinary child in their presence and remained silent. Being ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva prepared to take his son from the delivery room, and exactly at that time, a daughter was born to Nanda and Yasoda. She was Yogamaya, the internal potency of the Lord. By the influence of this internal potency, Yogamaya, all the residents of the Kamsa's palace, especially doorkeepers, were overwhelmed with deep sleep, and all the palace doors opened, although they were barred and shackled with iron chains. The night was very dark, but as soon as Vasudeva took Krishna on his lap and went out, he could see everything just as in the sunlight.
In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that Krishna is just like the sunlight, and that wherever there is Krishna, the illusion energy which is compared to darkness cannot remain. When the Vasudeva was carrying Krishna, the darkness of night disappeared. All the prisoners' doors automatically opened. At the same time, there was thunder in the sky and severe rainfall. While Vasudeva was carrying his son Krishna in the falling rain, Lord Shisha, in the shape of a serpent, spread his wood over the head of Vasudeva so that he could not be hampered by the rainfall. Vasudeva came out of the bank of the Yamuna and saw that the water of Yamuna was rowing with the waves, and that the whole span of full of foam. Still in that furious feature, the river gave passage to Vasudeva to cross, just as the great Indian Ocean gave path to the Lord Ram when he was bridging over the gulf. In this way, Vasudeva crossed the river Yamuna. On the other side, he went to the palace of Nanda Maharaj, situated in the Gokul, where he saw that all the cowherd men were fast asleep. He took opportunity to silently enter the house of Yashoda, and without difficulty he exchanged his son for the baby girl newly born there. Then, after entering the house very silently and exchanging the boy for the girl, he returned to the prison of Kamsa and silently put the girl on the lap of Devaki. He began to clap his shackles on himself so that Kamsa could not recognize that so many things had happened. Mother Yashoda understood that a child had been born to her, but because she was very tired from the labor of childbirth, she fell fast asleep. When she woke, she could not remember whether she had given birth to the male or female child. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of 3rd chapter of Krishna, the birth of Lord Krishna.
Chapter 4, Kamsa begins his persecutions. After Vasudeva adjusted things as they had been before, he carried Krishna to Gokul, and all the doors and gates became similarly closed. The gatekeepers awoke and heard the newborn child crying. Kamsa was waiting to hear the news of the child's birth, and the gatekeepers immediately approached him and informed him that the child was born. At that time, Kamsa got up from his bed very quickly and exclaimed, "Now the cruel death of my life is born." Kamsa became perplexed now that his death was approaching, and his hair scattered. Immediately he proceeded toward the place where the child was born. Devaki, on seeing her brother approaching, prayed in a very meek attitude to Kamsa, "My dear brother, please do not kill this female child. I promise that this child will be the wife of your son, Therefore, don't kill her. You are not to be killed by any female child. The omen was that you are to be killed by a male child. So please do not kill her. My dear brother, you have killed so many of my children who were just born, shining like the sun. That is not your fault. You have been advised by demoniac friends to kill my children. But now I beg you to excuse this girl at least. Let her live as my daughter.
Kamsa was so cruel that he did not listen to the pitiful prayers of his sister Devaki. He forcefully grabbed the newborn child to rebuke his sister and attempted to dash her on a stone mercilessly. This is a graphic example of a cruel demon who could sacrifice all relationships for the sake of personal gratification. But the child immediately slipped out of his hands, went up into the sky, and appeared with 8 arms as the younger sister of Vishnu. She was decorated with nice garments and flower garlands and ornaments. In her 8 hands she held a bow, lance, arrows, sword, console, disc, club, and shield. Seeing the appearance of the child, who was actually the goddess of Durga, all the demigods from different planets like Siddhaloka, Charanaloka, Gandharvaloka, Apsaraloka, Kennaraloka, and Uragaloka presented her with various articles and began to offer the respective prayers. From above, the goddess addressed Kamsa, "You rascal, how can you kill me? The child who will kill you is already born before me somewhere within this world. Don't be so cruel to your poor sister." After this appearance, Goddess Durga became known by various names in various parts of the world.
After hearing these words, Kamsa became very much overwhelmed with fear. Out of pity, he immediately released Vasudeva and Devaki from the bondage of their shackles and very politely began to address them. He said, "My dear sister and brother-in-law, I have acted just like a demon in killing my own nephews, your children, and thereby I have given up all consideration of our intimate relationship. I do not know what will be the result of these envious acts of mine. Probably I shall be sent to hell, where killers of the Brahmanas go. I am surprised, however, that the celestial prophecy has not come true. It is not only in human society that false propaganda is found. Now it appears that even the celestial denizens speak lies. Because I believed in the words of the celestial denizens, I have committed so many sins by killing the children of my sister. My dear Vasudeva and Devaki, you are both very great souls. I have no instructions to give you, but still I request that you not be sorry for the death of your children. Every one of us is under the control of superior power, and that superior power does not allow us to remain together. We are bound to be separated from our friends and relatives in due course of time. But we must know for certain that even after the disappearance of the different material bodies, the soul remains intact eternally. For example, there are many pots made of earthly clay, and they are prepared and also broken. But in spite of this, the earth remains as it is perpetually. Similarly, the bodies of the souls under different conditions are made and destroyed, but the spirit soul remains eternally. So there is nothing to lament over. Everyone should understand the material body is different from the spirit soul, and so long as one does not come to that understanding, He is sure to accept the processes of transmigration from one body to another.
My dear sister Devaki, you are so gentle and kind. Please excuse me. Don't be aggrieved by the death of your children, which I have caused. Actually, this was not done by me, because all these are predestined activities. One has to act according to the predestined plan, even unwillingly. People misunderstand that with the end of the body, the self dies, or they think that one can kill another living entity. All these misconceptions oblige one to accept the conditions of material existence. In other words, as long as one is not firmly convinced of the eternality of the soul, one is subjected to the tribulation of being killer and killed. My dear sister Devaki and brother in law Vasudeva, kindly excuse the atrocities I have committed against you. I am very poor hearted and you are so great hearted, so take compassion upon me and excuse me. While Kamsa was speaking to his brother in law and sister, tears flowed from his eyes and he fell down at their feet, believing the words of Durga Devi, whom he had tried to kill. Kamsa immediately released his brother in law and sister. He personally unlocked the iron shackles and very sympathetically showed his friendship for his family members.
When Devaki saw her brother so repentant, she also became pacified and forgot all his auspicious activities against her children. Vasudeva also, forgetting all past incidents, spoke smilingly with his brother-in-law. Vasudeva told Kamsa, "My dear fortunate brother-in-law, why you are saying about the material body and the soul is correct. Every living entity is born ignorant, misunderstanding this material body to be the self. This conception of life is due to ignorance, and on the basis of this ignorance, we create enmity or friendship. Lamentation, jubilation, fearfulness, envy, greed, illusion, and madness are different features of our material conception of life. A person influenced like this engages in enmity only due to the material body. Being engaged in such activities, we forgot our eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead." Vasudeva took the opportunity of Kamsa's benevolence and informed him that his atheistic activities were also due to this misconception of life, namely taking the material body to be the self. When Vasudeva talked with Kamsa in such an illuminating way, Kamsa became very much pleased, and his guilt for killing his nephews subsided. With the permission of his sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, he returned to his home with a relieved mind.
But the next day, Kamsa called all the counselors together and narrated to them all the incidents that had happened the night before. All the counselors of Kamsa were demons and eternal enemies of the demigods, so they became depressed upon hearing the master speak of the night's events. And although they were not very much experienced or learned, they began to give instructions to Kamsa as follows: "Dear sir, let us now make arrangements to kill all children who were born within the last 10 days in all towns and countries, villages and pasturing grounds. Let us execute this plan indiscriminately. We think that the demigod cannot do anything against us if we perform these atrocities. They are always afraid of fighting with us, and even if they wish to check our activities, they will not dare to do so because of your immeasurable strength. They fear your bow. Indeed, we have practical experience that whenever you stood to fight with them and began to shower your arrows on them, they immediately fled in all directions just to save their lives. Many of the demigods were unable to fight with you, and they immediately surrendered themselves unto you by loosening their turbans and the tufts of their hair on their heads. With folded hands they begged you to spare them and said, My Lord, we are all afraid of your strength. Please release us from this dangerous fight. We have also seen many times that you would never kill such surrendered fighters when they were all fearful, their bows, arrows, and chariots broken, forgetful of their military activities and unable to fight with you. So, actually, we have nothing to fear from these demigods. They are very proud of being great fighters in peacetime outside the war field. But actually, they cannot show any talent or military power on the war field. Although Lord Krishna, Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma are always ready to help the demigods headed by Indra, we have no reason to be afraid of them. As far as Lord Vishnu is concerned, he has already hidden himself within the hearts of all living entities and he cannot come out. As far as Lord Shiva is concerned, he has renounced all activities. He has already entered into the forest. And Lord Brahma is always engaged in different types of austerities and meditation. And what to speak of Indra? He is a straw in comparison to your strength. Therefore, we have nothing to fear from any of these demigods. But we must not neglect them. For the demigods are our determined enemies. We must be careful to protect themselves. To root them out from their very existence, we should just engage ourselves in your service and be always ready for your command.
The demons continue to say, if there is some disease in the body which is neglected in words and become incurable. Similarly, when one is not careful about restraining the sense and let them loose, it is then very difficult to control them. Therefore, we must now be very careful of the demigods before they get too strong to be subsided. The foundation of the strength of the demigods is Lord Vishnu, because the ultimate goal of all religion principle is to satisfy him. The Vedic indication, the Brahmanas, the cows, austerity, sacrifice, performance of charity, and distribution of wealth are all for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. So let us immediately begin by killing all the Brahmanas who are in charge of Vedic knowledge, along with the great sages who are in charge of sacrifice ritualistic performance. Let us kill all the cows which are the source of butter, which is so necessary for performing sacrifice. Please give us your permission to kill all this. Actual creatures.
Actually, the limbs of the transcendental body of Lord Vishnu are the Brahmanas, the cows, Vedic knowledge, austerity, truthfulness, sense and mind control, faithfulness, charity, tolerance, and performance of sacrifices. Lord Vishnu is situated in everyone's heart and is the leader of all demigods, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Therefore, we think that to persecute the great sages and Brahmanas is to kill Lord Vishnu. Thus, being advised by his demoniac ministers, Kamsa, who was from the very beginning the greatest rascal, decided to persecute the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Being entrapped by the shackles of all-devouring eternal time, he ordered the demons to harass all kinds of saintly persons, and then he entered his house. The adherents of Kamsa were all influenced by the mode of passion, as well as illusioned by the mode of ignorance, and their only business was to create enmity with saintly persons. Such activities can only reduce one's duration of life. The demons accelerated the process and invited their deaths as soon as possible. The result of persecuting saintly persons is not only untimely death. The act is so offensive that the perpetrator also gradually loses his beauty, his fame, and his religious principles, and thus his promotion to higher planets is checked. Driven by various kinds of mental concoctions, the demons diminish all kinds of auspiciousness. An offense at the lotus feet of the devotees and brahmanas is a greater offense than that committed at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A civilization that commits such sinful activities generally loses all faith in the Supreme Lord, and such a godless civilization becomes the source of all calamities in human society. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 4th chapter of Krishna. Kamsa begins his persecutions. Hari Bol.
So that concludes our Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada. We'd like to thank everyone for participating. And now let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Nama Om Vishnu Madaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane, and to each other Vanchakalpaturubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. See you next week. Hare Krishna, and thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for letting us come to read Krishna book to you. Hare Krishna.